Before this video begins, I want to shout out Jambariki as a huge inspiration for this video. I like his former review structure of breaking apart animated movies and giving points to each major aspect of the film. Here, I'll be doing the same thing for this review with some slight alterations. But I'm also going to make this my own review. I know my name is JJ Plagiarisms, but you'll have to give me the benefit of the doubt. Anyways, on to the review. I wasn't sure how to approach this review. I suppose I should judge it as every other movie, but I think the influence this movie has is so over the top that it'll be hard to talk about everything. We know what happened after and before this film takes place. It's one of the biggest fictional universes ever, but seeing what came after, it's hard not to talk about it. I'll probably only comment on the sequels when necessary, since this is the first entry in a trilogy. So anyways, on with the review. No one knew this would be such a big brand. On the surface, it seems like a generic sci-fi movie. I mean, George literally put two words together, Star and Wars. Put that together and you have Star Wars. But what do I personally think of this movie? We can all dislike things for different reasons. So what's my opinion on this movie? I think it's a great first movie, opens up the universe very well, with desire for a sequel immediately after it came out. Let's have a look at the major aspects of the film and give them a ranking out of 10. The story is relatively simple, but simple doesn't equal bad. It sets up the universe so well that of course George Lucas would make sequels and prequels off of it. One of the best things about this movie, and the other 5 of George Lucas's Star Wars films, is despite being aimed at a younger audience, George Lucas wanted to tell an intelligent story. That means a story that doesn't treat its audience like babies who can't handle stuff. This film has a moderate amount of death, and it isn't all bad guys. Luke's adoptive parents get torched in a gruesome manner. Let that sink in. The story has a simple tale done right. It's not trying to be the greatest story ever told, but when this is one of the best examples of a simple story done perfectly, you know you achieved something. And considering this movie had no source material other than George Lucas's own head, it tells a convincing and interesting universe. This story structure is so effective, it's no wonder why a lot of movies stole the formula. The biggest one that comes to mind is Guardians of the Galaxy. It's basically a New Hope with Marvel characters. The story itself is what I would describe as desirable for more. A New Hope hooks you right off the bat with words such as Galactic Empire and Death Star. The opening is excellent. It tells you everything you need to know. The movie has a good introduction. The movie slows down after the exciting part to introduce us to our protagonist, Luke. His introduction is great, as are the other major characters introduced in the movie. Darth Vader's introduction is very well handled. You get a sense of hopelessness when he's on screen. He's as threatening as hell. Leia's introduction is also great. A helpless princess working for resistance, and the only thing she can do now is pass things off to a droid. When we get to Luke, he's introduced to us as an angsty teen, not an annoying teen, as his personality comes off as charming. He has some funny lines. This movie knows when to be serious and when to be sad. The comedy doesn't come out as forced or out of place. It knows when to be funny. Obi-Wan Kenobi is an interesting character despite having no backstory in the film itself. You had to wait for the prequels to get that. If I had to choose a favorite character in the movie, it would be quite hard. I would say Obi-Wan, but that decision would be influenced a lot from the prequels. With just the context of this film, Obi-Wan has a charm to his character, but it was the prequels that made me love the character. It's impossible for me to separate from the other movies. All the characters are likable and charming, and they have a lot to them. It's because of the excellent world building. This film gives itself the scope of being a large universe. It's because of clever things like mentioning a conflict named the Clone Wars that gives it such intrigue. The Clone Wars is such an interesting name that it makes you want to see more from this universe. A New Hope tells you a lot about the universe and all the basic rules without coming off as exposition heavy. We know what the state of the galaxy is, who the characters are, and the time this movie takes place. By the way, I don't mean the specific year since the Star Wars universe never specifies when, but we know it's leaning towards the early days of a civil war. The world of Star Wars is an interesting one. That, of course, it had a crap ton of lore videos made about it. The story is well written, well structured. The film is essentially the basis of how to write a story for beginners. It's a simple story and it's effective at what it sets out to do. I'm gonna give the film 8 points for the story. Talk about exceptional. This film has so many iconic shots that everybody references to death and it never gets old. Star Wars was always meant to play out sort of like silent films. There's a lot of visual storytelling. George Lucas was a fan of silent films, and I liked how you could tell a story through visuals with little dialogue. For example, we can tell so much from the twin sun scene. You can see that Luke is about to go on an adventure, but even in the present you can tell that he strives for it based on his expression. The scenes fit the story so well. The beginning establishes who's in charge at the beginning. The lightsaber fight represents a battle between former master and apprentice, and the medal ceremony shows us a triumphant victory against the Empire. The editing is also pretty good. Like most movies, the film was re-edited after a disastrous rough cut. Lucas and friends were able to fix everything just in time for the film's release in 1977. This film has good pacing. Starts strong, then slowing down, then building up to a climax. The climax was originally intended to be longer, but Lucas realized it needed to be shorter. It's the perfect length. Not too short, but also not too long. I'm going to give the cinematography/editing 9 points. The effects are great. Everything in the original cut looks real. That's because they made actual miniatures. There were real models that were actually there. This assists in giving the universe a sense of believability, even if it is far, far away. The visual design is one of the most fondly remembered parts of the movie, and even the entire series for that matter. The art by Ralph McQuarrie really gave the series the iconic look. Since this is the first movie, you have to define what the series looks like. The thing about this movie is that everything is sellable like a product. What this film does better than most other franchises with merchandise is they make you want to buy the toys, the video games, and the t-shirts. It's no wonder why George made so much money. It's because the visual design is awesome. They managed to be different than all the other notable science fiction franchises. The costumes in Star Trek look really cheap, but that's part of the charm, and the design of the costumes for Star Wars really does the same thing for different reasons. It feels like they go together and they belong in the same universe. I know this because The Force Awakens, a movie that George had little to do with, had designs that looked nothing like Star Wars. Point is, Star Wars got its iconic look with George approving everything. Without his input, the universe feels off. As for the sets, it's as amazing as everything else. They filmed a lot of scenes at actual locations that managed to still look like a galaxy far, far away. Examples include the Hotel Sidi Driss in Tunisia. This is where the Lars homestead is located, and it looks like a home on the backwater planet in a larger galaxy. Another set I like is the Tikal National Park in Guatemala, where they filmed the exterior of the Rebel base on Yavin 4. These sets, these visuals, and these effects go hand in hand in creating a unique yet believable universe based on looks alone. I'm going to give 10 points to the visual design. Mark Hamill plays Luke Skywalker. Hamill's portrayal comes off as a little cheesy, but the performance has a lot of charm that adds to the movie. Cheesy does not always equal bad. Under George's direction, we get an angsty teen with a lot of funny lines that Hamill pulls off well. Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. Anthony Daniels cared about the role so much that he reprised it for pretty much everything, all the way to the Rise of Skywalker. C-3PO is one of the most iconic robots in film, along with the writing and most especially Daniels' performance. He'd done the role so much, being in all 9 of the main Star Wars films, plus Rogue One, and the Clone Wars show, and many Star Wars video games too. Alec Guinness plays Obi-Wan Kenobi. Even though he hated the role, Alec Guinness did it well, like a professional actor should. When it looks like he enjoyed the role even though he didn't, that means you've done good. Guinness has a great persona about him, although I would say I liked Ewan McGregor more in the prequels. Harrison Ford is Han Solo. Like Guinness, Harrison Ford plays the role so well to the point of him looking like he enjoyed the role, even though he didn't. His cocky persona gives the character a charm that many movies afterward mimicked. He's a jerk, but he's a likable jerk, and he comes back at the end to help the good guys. Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia Organa. Same quality as Mark Hamill. Okay, She was good at being a female icon and her performance was far from boring. Leia comes off as a strong-willed young leader who risks her life in some points and saves her rescuers even. David Prowse, the body actor, and James Earl Jones, the voice actor, as Darth Vader. This is the rare occasion that two actors have to work on the same role, but they both complement each other in the movie. Darth Vader's character is so memorable that it actually took me a while to realize that he doesn't actually do much in the first movie. Prowse with the movement and Jones with the voice is like mixing an evil tasting milkshake. Peter Cushing is Will Huff Tarkin. I like the professional yet sinister take on your basic British villain. Peter Cushing gave one of the best performances in the series, alongside Ewan McGregor, Ian McDiarmid and Liam Neeson. He's cold, calculating and smart. He comes across as a threat second only to Vader, and it felt like a blow to the Empire with his death. I'm going to give 8 points to the acting. The words to describe A New Hope soundtrack is spectacular. Every scene hits the right note. There's calm tunes and tunes for the spectacle and themes for even casual exchanges. The music is all original, no licensed songs. The songs were composed by the legendary John Williams, who composed Superman, Indiana Jones and Home Alone, but none of his compositions are not as good as the Star Wars theme, designed to get you excited. Everybody recognizes the music. While I think Revenge of the Sith has the best soundtrack, A New Hope introduced the iconic sound of Star Wars, so it deserves a lot of credit. The music is so unique, it's hard to describe why. Sometimes when you're watching an action movie, the score sounds like a generic stock music file you could get off a website. But John Williams is so talented that he could never write something so crap. He wrote one of the most influential scores in cinema history. The Force theme captures the feeling of hope and adventure, and sets and fits the tone of the movie. The TIE Fighter sequence music is dramatic and tense. The Rebel Blockade music is also very grandiose, and the notes build up to the tension, and sometimes pauses before beating a louder sound. The Imperial Attack soundtrack conveys the sense of peril, and tells you more than what the scene itself looks like. As for normal sound effects, the man behind that is Ben Burtt. He found interesting ways to make unique sounds with computers and with Foley. The whole lot of experimentation paid off as it had some of the most iconic sounds in history. Vader's breathing, R2-D2's beeps, and the sound of the lightsabers stand out. I'm going to give 10 points to the music/sound. Star Wars changed the world. This movie was so well loved that it spawned a gigantic franchise consisting of 11 movies, countless novels, comics, TV series, video games, and merchandise. Episode 9 came out 42 years after the original movie, so only just now has the series been concluded. While Star Wars was not the first interstellar sci-fi franchise, being influenced by works such as Flash Gordon and Star Trek, yet changed the genre forever, as many films tried to piggyback on the success of Star Wars. It is referenced in many films made by nerds. May the 4th is an International Star Wars Day, where fans from around the world celebrate the franchise. Even though it wasn't released on that day, it was a stupid pun. But for the original film itself, it was one hell of a stepping stone, establishing the universe we know dearly and influenced Western movie culture for years to come, and also to this day. A New Hope has received a total of 45 points out of 50, equaling a 9 out of 10 score. It's not the best Star Wars movie. I think that title goes to Revenge of the Sith, but I think it stands fine on its own merits. Thanks for watching.
Water was running